Hi, this is Mike Sainato with Real Progressives. We're starting a little bit late tonight. We had some technical difficulties, so I apologize for that. But I'm very excited about this show. For the Observer, I covered the DNC class action lawsuit, from its early stages and ongoing from some of the ridiculous arguments you were hearing from the DNC. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz's lawyers. Tonight we have one of the attorneys leading the class action lawsuit that I believe is still pending. But Jared Beck, if you could give me what's the latest about this class action lawsuit, and when can we expect to hear some answers?
Sure. So just by way of background, this is a lawsuit that we filed last year, even before all the WikiLeaks revelations came out, and we filed it based upon the Beacherfer 2.0 documents that some of your viewers may remember, and we alleged a series of claims on behalf of all of the people that gave money to Bernie Sanders, claiming that essentially they were defrauded and victimized by misrepresentations and omissions of fact that were made by the DNC and its then chairperson, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. This lawsuit was, as some of your viewers may remember, that the process server who served our lawsuit, a gentleman by the name of Sean Lucas, passed away under very mysterious circumstances shortly after he served the lawsuit. It's still unclear and a mystery to me what happened to him. We have an autopsy report, and that's in the court record, which shows that a strange cocktail of drugs was found in Mr. Lucas's system, but that's all we have. So there's really, from the perspective of answering the question, what happened to him and was there criminal activity involved, that question is unanswered as far as I'm concerned. But this became an issue in the lawsuit, and this was shortly after the complaint was filed, because the DNC actually contested service of process. That was the first motion they filed to dismiss the case. And what they said in the motion was that the complaint had not been properly served. And the court scheduled a hearing on that motion, and then Mr. Lucas was found dead by his girlfriend on his bathroom floor days before that hearing. You have some very mysterious circumstances right off the bat. We had a hearing in front of the court because the court had to rule on the motion. We couldn't produce Mr. Lucas as our witness because at that point he was deceased. And so we had to prove service by whatever means were available to us. And, those means actually included video of the entire service of process event, because we had a independent filmmaker friend that we were working with through Jampack, which is another organization I run, that was producing videos, and we thought it might be an interesting video to show to the public, which is how this very important lawsuit was getting served. So he actually had videotaped Sean serving the complaint at DNC headquarters.
And that's available on YouTube for in case anyone wants to look that up and hasn't seen that.
Right.
But go on.
It's I think it's a very significant video. I know a lot of people have watched it. There's a lot of comments on the YouTube, I think, when I think of this case, I always have, the image of Sean serving that complaint as how this lawsuit officially got off the ground. So we had a hearing in court. We played the video. We called Ricardo Villalba, who was our friend who had filmed it, and he came down as a witness from D.C. The DNC actually called no witnesses at the hearing, although they produced an affidavit from, I believe, two of their employees or one of their employees, and they, argued in court just on the basis of that, as a matter of technicality, Sean Lucas had not gone through the proper steps. But it was, total bogus argument because we know they had the complaint. They had already hired their lawyers who were coming down to Florida to defend them. So it was, and you have to remember, all this is happening right before the convention, or maybe it was shortly after the convention. But it was, you have to realize the election is going on. So they're going to be trying to delay us as much as possible, keep this case as far away from the media as possible, because, we're trying to steal the primaries here, and then we're going to have to, basically steal the general election. So, the last thing we need is this lawsuit where all, these huge numbers of Bernie supporters are suing the DNC for fraud. Okay, that's not going to help. So obviously,
and that demonstrated just how biased the media was for Hillary Clinton, because if there was a similar class action lawsuit against Bernie, against Trump, against anyone else but Hillary Clinton, it would have gotten nonstop media coverage. Just think of after the election, the coverage that Jill Stein got with the recount efforts and the electors trying to defect them from the Electoral College, and what happened was more electors defected from Hillary Clinton than Trump, and those turn out to be bogus. Just imagine the kind of media frenzy that would be revolving around this class action lawsuit, which is really I know I covered it, but maybe there were a few other, small handful of outlets that were covering this lawsuit and, what was going on here. So that it's really a microcosm of how biased the media is.
No, those are excellent points. And let me tell you something on the issue of media. We had one very small article in the Wall Street Journal that got published actually during the convention. And I was actually shocked that the Wall Street Journal was going towards it. But you have to remember at the time, I think there was a lot of uncertainty about which companies were going to be backing whom. So, they could very well have been trying to, screw with the DNC at that point. So, they might have been, taking a torpedo for that reason. But other than that, that was like the only mainstream coverage we've gotten. But here's the crazy thing about it. So Elizabeth, she's all over freaking CNN, all right, when she was, got in that fight with Trump at the deposition. They had her on early, 8 o'clock, we want to hear everything that happened about Trump. And then she's on Chris Hayes that night. And, she's has the media just hounding us. Okay, just over that stupid, it's not stupid, but it's an incident at a deposition. Okay, this is like a class action we're talking about. And, she's the same lawyer in this case. So it's not like, it's, if you want to take a perfect experiment of what you're talking about, you can, the people are like the same. It's just, in the one hand, they're telling you something you don't want to know. On the other hand, they're telling you something you definitely want to know and broadcast everybody. So how much more bias can you get? So yeah, absolutely, totally fascinating how the media's treated the case.
So to get back to where we were about the DNC class action lawsuit, there was court hearings on the veracity of the whether there was properly processed, and it was properly served. So what happened after that?
Yeah, so we had the hearing on service of process. The courtroom was packed. I've never seen a hearing that packed in all my practice. Tons of people from the local area who were like big Bernie fans were just in there, and they were looking really pissed off. The judge had a full hearing on the issues. You couldn't ask for a situation of a court taking a case more seriously. Let me put it that way. He had all his clerks out there. He was paying, extraordinarily close attention to every detail. And, remember, this is, we're just talking about a very small service of process issue, but he basically devoted a huge part of the afternoon and all of his resources to hearing that hearing. And let me tell you, as a lawyer, you really like to see that in any case. That's the best thing you can ask for as a lawyer, especially when you're pleading a case on behalf of the plaintiffs. Is you want the court to be listening to everything you're saying and taking everything you're saying, very soberly and carefully. And that's exactly what we got. It was a very long hearing, as it should be, because it's a full evidentiary hearing. Afterwards, he thanked us all for our arguments and the evidence, and he said that he would be promptly issuing an order, which he did. And what he did was he found that that there was a technical deficiency in how the case is served, but he did something that, in my opinion, is very extraordinary, which he actually chastised the DNC for playing games in his courtroom. He used a very, very strong language against the DNC, really eye-catching language, and he said that he would not tolerate it again. And so when you get that kind of strong language from a federal judge, which in an order like that, it really is a huge signal to the parties. And then after that, the DNC very promptly just agreed to drop their arguments and accept service. So we got exactly what we wanted, which was the case to get to the next level. And of course, the next level is that the DNC filed a motion to dismiss the case on new grounds, and those grounds being that we don't have viable claims as a matter of law. So basically, they wrote, a really lengthy motion packed with legal arguments, and you can download everything from our website and get it online if you're interested in delving into it. But they essentially said that the case should be dismissed before we even get to going into the evidence through discovery.
And one of those arguments was that there was no basis for this lawsuit because Bernie Sanders supporters knew the process was rigged. Yes,
I actually put that exact argument in black and white, which I think it's just mind-numbing, to make an argument like that. And really, I've seen bad arguments in litigation before, but that really is one of the worst I've seen. Defies common sense. But beyond that, they also made this very, I think that was definitely, some just real bad argumentation in that motion. But their principal argument, and one that I think is really dangerous and could have just terrible ramifications if it's ever been accepted if it's ever accepted by a court, and by no means do I think our court is going to accept it. But essentially, they're trying to seek protection of the First Amendment in this case, and they're basically saying, look, we're a political organization. We do politics. We have freedom of association under the First Amendment. And so therefore, we can do whatever we want. We can say whatever we want. And because we're in the political realm, we can never suffer legal liability. And if you think about that argument, of course, they're using the First Amendment, which people love. I mean, the First Amendment is one of our great rights in this country, and it's why we can have this discussion right now, and so many people can see it. I mean, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of the press, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's wonderful to see so much of it these days being exercised. So they're seeking, like a lot of fraudsters, they seek refuge in something that's really good, which is the First Amendment. But what they're trying to say is, that this First Amendment is so broad and powerful that it even protects us when we lie to people and take money from them. And so No court has ever agreed with that. We have good case law that the Supreme Court has issued in recent years, which reject very similar arguments in contexts like this involving nonprofits. And there is a history of courts holding political parties accountable. There is case law on that. I mean, this isn't the first time litigation like this has been brought. There are cases where courts have issued judgments against political parties for doing all types of fraudulent things, and we've cited those cases. This is actually, they want to act like it's like some, unprecedented thing that you would haul a political party into court and get a judgment against them. Well, they're nothing more than a company that has engaged in fraudulent acts that have caused a lot of damage to a lot of people. That happens to for-profit companies for-profit companies do that kind of thing all the time, and they're held accountable in the courts. So it's not a big deal, and certainly not precedent-shattering from our perspective that that we would have that we can get a judgment in a case like this. So we think the short of it is that we think their arguments lack any merit whatsoever. And we think the court's going to agree with us. But that motion is pending before the court now.
So the last I think we've heard was in October. I believe they're deliberating on the defendant's motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Based on your experiences with other class action lawsuits, do you have any idea how long the wait will be, and even when they begin the court process again, where does the lawsuit go from there?
Yeah. So in litigation practice, the time between when you file a motion and when you get a decision it's very variable. It can be anywhere from a month to several months to a year to more than a year for a motion to dismiss like this. I believe we will be getting something. I would imagine, if I just had to guess, something in the next few months. But there's really no way. There's no way to say one way or another, because at the end of the day, the judge wants to get it right. This judge is made it very, very clear that he's taking this case seriously, and that's the most important thing. I would much rather have a judge take this seriously, take a few extra months with the motion, make sure that the order is carefully reasoned and bulletproof from an appellate perspective, and just take that extra time, then have a judge do a quick job and, number one, not agree with me and throw me out of court, or number two, maybe they do agree with us, but they don't take a great amount of time with the opinion, and so it gets reversed on appeal for a reason. So I think we can all appreciate a deliberate process. We know the judge is looking at the case carefully. He's very much aware of the issues because we've already had a very long hearing with him. We know he's paying attention to this very, very carefully, and he is deliberating with his clerks to craft an opinion that is going to be a very important opinion in this case, because whatever the result is, and certainly if we prevail against the defendants, we know they're going to chase down every appellate avenue, and they're going to take this all the way to the end. And so you don't want anything to slip through that leaves that final verdict exposed on appeal. So from our perspective, we're very, very happy that we've got a very, very, very deliberate and thoughtful and studious judge on our case.
And is it too late for Bernie Sanders supporters to sign up for the lawsuit, or is there anything people watching or Sanders supporters who are still upset about how the primaries were handled? Is there anything they can do, or any way they can help?
Oh, well, so the first question, what can people do? So in terms of actual participation in the lawsuit by the class, by which I mean, filing documents with the court or going through a claims process. We're nowhere near at that stage yet. First, the court is going to have to make a ruling on the motion to dismiss. If it denies the motion, which we expect is going to happen, the next stage is the parties will have discovery. We will move for class certification at that stage. That's the stage where the court makes a determination that this case will be applied not just to the named representatives, and we have like 100 people that are actually on the caption, but of course to all the Bernie Sanders supporters in the class. So we know many, many thousands of people across the country. At that stage, something which is, if class certification is entered for the case, then the court will issue what's called class-wide notice. And then there will actually be a notice that Bernie supporters will get through some channel that the court determines, and then they can participate directly through that. In the meantime, I think the best thing people can do is to just continue to engage in the really active political dialogue that's going on right now across the country, and especially in social media, like we're doing right now. This is just one piece of a much larger struggle that's going on that we're fighting. I think we have a political climate in this country, which, in some ways, I think it would be accurate to say that we're at war with ourselves. This is part of a fight. This is part of a struggle, but only one piece of that struggle. So I would say that, the more active people get, the more you pursue pursue whatever political passion that you have, even if that's just having really active discussions online with your friends, sharing news articles, making sure people are informed, letting people who maybe seem to be uninformed, educating them, getting the word out there, about this lawsuit, but everybody else that's making, a difference or trying to, affect the struggle in some way. That's what you can contribute the most, because we have to be pushing back on the corporate media machine with everything we've got. I think we're pushing them over. I think I think this is their dying days, but, we have so much power on our side in terms of, the media revolution that's going on. So I would just say continue to be part of that, continue to be active. I know you might not get as much work done, or you might neglect your family a little bit, but this is a larger struggle. So, try to live a balanced life, but remember, we're all pushing towards some very important goals here that everybody needs to get involved in some level and just be loud and be out there and, get the message out.
All right. Now, if we could bring on Elizabeth. I know she's in the background watching the kids. We had some comment joking that it was Hillary in the background screaming.
Yeah, no, she can kind of get into her Hillary modes, but she's 5, so you let her get away with it. I'm just going to run out and grab her, okay. And I'll get her in, and then I'll be right back.
All right. So, I shared the website, and that's on the screen right now. That will show you all the documents that have been involved in the class action lawsuit. I've written several articles about what's been going on since the lawsuit was filed this past June. Here's Elizabeth.
Hi.
So Elizabeth, could you start off by telling us a little bit about the media attention you were getting for this Trump deposition?
Yeah, there was actually no media attention until 2011. And then the New York Times contacted us because they actually wanted to just, I guess, cover some of the substance of the lawsuits. There was a lot of lawsuits, and I'm sure we're not the only lawyers who were contacted. And he said, it's all public record. Sure, we'll send you information. And the New York Times reporter read the deposition transcripts, and he honed in on this strange interchange. And he said, what happened here? So we told him. And he said, are you willing to go forward with the story? And I said, sure, the guy's running for president. I think people need to know everything, if Mitt Romney sticking a dog on the roof of his car, everybody heard about it, and President Obama eating some weird animal food in foreign countries, everybody hears about it, then sure, I think we should hear about this too, you know? So I went public with the story, and then just, you know, everybody just piled on. It became the story that wouldn't die. But I just don't think it's that big of a deal because I think I'm certainly not the first working woman who encountered, you know, a bunch of guys who didn't really understand what mothers go through when we're trying to juggle multiple things, you know. Women understand. I don't know if men understand. Certainly, you know, older generation of men don't necessarily understand what it's like to try to be a wife and a mother. And even those two things are just full-time jobs. And then, you know, you try to work outside the home, and then it's just a lot of things to juggle, you know.
Aside from the DNC,
it was very odd.
Yeah. Well, aside from the DNC class action lawsuit, could you tell us a little bit about what the class action lawsuit was that you recently won against Kim Kardashian?
That's a whole completely different case. We were contacted by an attorney, Nolan Klein. He practices in New York and Florida, and we knew Nolan because in some of our cases he was the lawyer for the other side. And I think it's a great compliment when a lawyer that you go up against reaches out to you and says, hey, you guys want to work on this case with me? And basically the case involved a company, a high-end cosmetics company called Chroma Cosmetics, that wanted to sue the Kardashian sisters for trademark infringement because they had put out their own cosmetics company, also called Chroma. It had an H in it. And, you know, you have to understand that before the Kardashian sisters launched Chroma, they knew that Chroma, spelled K-R-O-M-A, existed. They just didn't care. They knew that a company, a cosmetics company with that name existed. They just didn't care, you know? So that's the case in a nutshell, and it caused a lot of confusion. And our client got, you know, she started getting contacted by distributors who said, you know, why is your cosmetics being sold at CVS? And she said, my cosmetics is not being sold at CVS. People were getting very confused. It's a case about willful infringement.
And you know, you won that case, and I brought that up in part because I wanted our viewers to kind of get a sense that you and Jared are, you know, experienced in class action lawsuits and have seen, you know, success against, you know, big, powerful people. So why?
I just want to say that the Kardashian case is still ongoing. They went up on appeal on some intermediate matter, and then they lost that, and that's also not a class action. I mean, I have one case right now. It's a medical malpractice case, and it's not a class action. My client is a lady in New York who had a massive stroke. So, you know, I don't like to consider myself a class action lawyer. I don't like to consider myself, you know, I consider myself a plaintiff's lawyer, you know.
And why did you and Jared decide to pursue litigation along the class action avenue when it came to the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Well, look, you know, really the elements of a lawsuit is a law is broken and somebody is wronged by that law being broken. That should be enough for a lawsuit. Unfortunately, nowadays, lawsuits are expensive. And that's where I think plaintiffs' lawyers and contingency lawyers help out because, by taking the case on contingency, we allow those cases to come into court even when the plaintiff has no funds. So in the DNC case, those two elements were met. Okay, there were laws that were broken, And there were people who were wronged by that. And my goodness, for one lawsuit, it just takes one person who's wronged. Here, I cannot even tell you. When we filed the lawsuit, even before we filed the lawsuit, and since then, my email blew up, and there are still tens of thousands of emails that I will never read until I die. Okay, it's just they're in a folder, they're unread. I can't read them. Okay, so we had our IT guy hop on it. We had to rejigger everything, but it's to me, it is a profoundly legitimate class action, about as legitimate of a class action as I've ever seen, because the class is very active, class is very interested in the outcome of the case, and I'm very honored to be one of the attorneys that are working on this case. I still don't know why there aren't other lawsuits. The DNC case should be popping up in all jurisdictions, but apparently, lawyers don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I don't know why.
Well, we thank you for being one of the only lawyers who are really fighting against them. My last question is, I know there's been a lot of support from Bernie Sanders supporters, but can you talk a little bit about kind of the negative feedback, if at all, that you've received from whether it's Clinton supporters or Democrats? So what backlash have you received and experienced from them?
First of all, that's a good question. But when Jared and I left defense work, representing some of the biggest multinational corporations in the world, and we opened up our plaintiffs' law firm, just the two of us, in 2007, it's been basically nonstop backlash, okay? When you represent plaintiffs, you're at the bottom of the legal totem pole, People are like, plaintiffs' lawyers again? So it's really nothing new to me. And since then, I mean, when I went forward with the Donald Trump having a meltdown in a deposition episode, all these people came out of the woodwork and was saying all sorts of stuff. And then when the DNC lawsuit was filed, a lot of my classmates got angry at me. I don't know why, but
And you went to Yale Law School, I believe, right?
I did, and Yale Law School is just all in for Hillary. She's apparently one of their most illustrious graduates, which is really embarrassing. But anyway.
All right. So before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know?
Yes, send us good vibes. We need all the good vibes we can get. Please follow the lawsuit on the Facebook page. Even if you're not a member of the class, I think lawsuits of this type are very important for everyone. Even if you're a Republican and you have nothing to do with Bernie Sanders, the legal theories that underpin this case can very well be useful to you. In whatever case you may want to bring in the future. I don't really care what your politics are. I just feel that politics should go back into the hands of the citizens. That's what I believe. So.
All right. Well, Elizabeth, thanks for coming on tonight. And
somebody asked, the Facebook page is DNC Fraud Lawsuit. www.facebook.com DNC Fraud Lawsuit. You can also follow us on Twitter. If you send an email to dncfraud@jampack.us, that's J as in Jerry, A, M as in Michael, P as in Paul, A as in Apple, C as in Charlie, .us. Just send an email there, dncfraud@jampack.us. You'll get a bounce back with all the links that you can look at to follow the lawsuit, which I manage myself. So it's accurate.
All right. Well, thank you again, Elizabeth. And I want to thank our viewers for tuning in this week. Next week, I'll be interviewing the campaign manager of Stamp Stampede, which is an organization that Nina Turner's on the board of to get money out of politics. So, we'll be posting this feed on YouTube shortly after the live feed's done. I want to thank you again, and thanks again, Elizabeth. I'll be following it and reporting on any new endeavors. But like she said, follow her on Twitter. Follow Jared on Twitter and follow Jampack and the DNC fraud lawsuit. There's been a lot of questions as to whether it's still going on. It's still pending, so it's nothing's been. Don't get sidetracked or disoriented.
Barely off the ground, people. It's a long process.
So, they're still fighting, and so are we. So, till next week. Thank you.
Bye.